If you think you've seen it all, you may have to reconsider, as this one is likely to get more disturbingly brutal than you would expect. We open on a dark and stormy night, floating over a little suburban subdivision before phasing into a living room where they're watching Not Chris Angel. As we follow the POV of the family dog, our view floats back to a bedroom where a young lad flees a gruesome crime underway. He runs upstairs to hide amongst the corpses of his family and arm himself with the household revolver. As a final farewell, his old man gifts him the key to the trigger lock, but ultimately his demise is too fast and scary for this to make any difference. The next morning, as the neighborhood comes to life, we find Charlie walking his defunct dirt bike back home. He pauses momentarily for some self-aggrandizing chit-chat.
You're getting big.
And to read the message printed on Doris's butt. He then helps his mom Jane prepare for a hard day of hard selling as she tries to puzzle out what their dumpster neighbor could possibly be renovating to generate all that concrete. Then Charlie's best gal Amy rolls up to give him a ride to school, where he struggles on the daily to sort out what's cool or not cool. His shoes are a winner, but then Amy declares that prom equals not cool, so who knows? But he's figuring some things out as he pulls a fadeaway on that venti mochaccino like he doesn't even care that it cost $8. In a brief scene, we learn that roll call identifies some conspicuously absent fellow chums. And afterward, his old friend Ed pulls him aside to enlist his help in looking for one of their mutual friends who seems to be missing. But Ed's existence is really cramping his newer, fresher style, you know? And anyway, real Chads don't worry much about their imperiled friends, but Ed has some juicy blackmail material and applies just the right amount of pressure here. He and Amy get home later to find Jane garden flirting with a potential new daddy. They meet Jerry, their new neighbor, and are instantly drawn in by his animal magnetism. He endears himself to the family and very nearly manages to draw a drink out of Jane, but she's wily and her life experience has taught her how to identify a player and steer clear of that train wreck. Charlie then gets a pictorial reminder about his scheduled rendezvous at Adam's house, and so he excuses himself to meet up with Ed. With no foreplay whatsoever, Ed thrusts himself through the doggy door, and then pushes the details of his vampiric theories upon us. He and Adam had been mapping out recent reports of missing people and bite attacks about town. The pattern centers in on Jerry, the new guy, who also happens to have blackout curtains all over his house. He also explains the rules that vampires have to be invited in, and you can only kill them by staking them in their nest. But with the risk of the plot advancing too quickly, they pump the brakes on this info dump by introducing some animus over the matter of their wilting friendship. On his way home, Ed is taught a lesson about boarding on Mark Street after dark, forcing him into the back alleys of the neighborhood. He's confronted here by Jerry and attempts to hide out in a household. Unfortunately, it is an abandoned property, so Jerry's got free reign. Try as he might, Ed puts off a very signature scent that's easy for Jerry to follow. He ultimately catches up with him in the pool, wading in with blatant disregard for the condition of his leather wristlet, so you know it's serious. He points out how purpose-built Ed seems to be for this type of life, and then he turns him something fierce. The next day, Ed is added to the list of absentees, so Charlie ditches out and heads straight to his house to find out what up. Ed's not home, but Lisa Loeb is there, which is odd. They allow him to go search his room for a book he claims to need. And while there, Charlie scours his research, pushing past Peter Vincent to find his surveillance videos in which Jerry does not appear. After searching for 4 or so hours apparently, Charlie arrives home to learn that Jerry is in a bit of a jam. He has a choice Betty coming over for some cervezas, but he happens to be fresh out. Charlie agrees to hook him up with a sixer and notices that Jerry only seems willing to follow him so far before stopping. He even toys with him a little to both confirm this and indicate to Jerry that he's savvy to what's going on here. Unfazed, Jerry starts analyzing his single mom situation, trying to be daddy by guiding him through the talk.
And your girl, Amy, she's ripe.
Yeah, for sure. And he's correct because she happens to be right upstairs, giving off some strong signals, but Charlie is preoccupied with the outside as Doris arrives at Jerry's house. He then body checks Amy, which somehow gets her out of the mood, causing her to storm off. Charlie wakes up later to a lady screaming and immediately dials 911. But when the officers arrive, Jerry practically charms their pants right off, with a little guy talk about his sexual prowess. When they leave, so does Jer, so Char hops the fence and quickly locates the hide-a-key to gain entry to the home. Inside, you're looking at your classic bachelor pad. Single chair in front of the TV, no pictures hung, etc. Charlie's evidence search is interrupted by Jerry's return, forcing him into a closet. While there, he finds a false door leading into a soundproof chamber with a series of rooms. He finds Doris here, but then finds out that he doesn't actually know how to pick locks. And then Jerry comes to check on his late-night snack. He watches as Jerry gets himself all worked up and goes in for the kill, making direct eye contact with Doris as she's being drained. Jerry goes to relax with some Real Housewives, giving Charlie time to get the door open and help a very anemic Doris downstairs. After a couple of close calls, they are able to make it outside. But Jerry saw what they did, but it ends up not mattering even a little bit. When he gets home, he insists that his mom never invite Jerry into the house and that she stay away from him in general. Then he spends his time at school in the media center to research vampire hunting and neglect his personal relationships. Later, he decides to approach this from every avenue and heads down to the convention center where he casually works his way into a Peter Vincent dress rehearsal. After their run-through, he's able to talk his way into a 10-minute meeting. As he gets a brief tour, he discovers that Peter is actually the man, at least when it comes to owning some bitchin' vampire gear. The entertainer readies himself with a tumbler of absinthe and kneads his leather-induced yeast infection like an actual loaf of bread, and then is surprised to find the young journalist before him is looking to actually learn about viable methods for killing vampires. He ends up coming on too strong and learns that Peter is not a true believer, and he has Charlie removed from his presence. Back at home, Jane wonders about her son's new decor aesthetic and hobbies. Then Amy arrives to also find out what's been going on with him lately, and Jerry is not far behind. He politely calls out for an invite into the home to discuss the matter of young Charlie breaking into his house. But Jane has her son's back and turns him away. Unfortunately for them all, Jerry is no longer interested in playing these little piggy games. The two ladies laugh at Charlie's assertion of vampirism right up until Jerry starts chunking up the backyard, tugging on their gas line and attempting to blast them out. They tear out of there, damaging the dirt bike in the process. Jerry is somewhat irrationally angry about this and chucks it into the back of their vehicle. Jane is still on the fence about this being a vampire situation, but before any further evidence can be presented, Jerry catches up with them and attempts to run them off the road. After blocking them, Charlie tries to convince Jane to run him down, and is somehow able to make this happen by grabbing the wheel. They are successful in what Jane must consider a cold-blooded murder, but then the vampire issue is thrust upon her again when Jerry starts poking his little fingies through the floorboard. When they stop to address this, they get blasted from behind by none other than JD himself. He steps out and watches in horror as Jerry burpees the back end of the car and then dives in to neck him super hard. The meal really takes the edge off, so Jerry moves in slowly on Charlie while explaining to him the importance of staking the actual heart rather than just the chest. This is the perfect exposition for Jane to hear as she plants her flag. Charlie then casually flips their car onto him as he beelines for the closest hospital. Meanwhile, in a state of post-nut clarity, Peter Vincent glances at the photos Charlie left behind and notices marked similarities between them and one of his most precious source documents. Back at the hospital, the kids are hesitant to utilize the police due to the insanity of their story and their prior experiences. As they wait, Peter calls to invite them to his penthouse to discuss the matter further. When they arrive, he warns them that the picture indicates they're dealing with a very strong and dangerous breed that is likely looking to bolster their ranks by turning their victims. Then they get an unusual late-night delivery, which is always welcome, but the courier turns out to be Ed. They have a brief exchange and learn that Ed is bitter that their failing friendship led to his current condition. Peter then attempts to duck into his panic room and removes a good portion of Ed's arm in the process. As the other two scour the personal museum for useful weaponry, Charlie settles in on a battle axe. With Ed still getting used to his new powers, Charlie's able to nearly remove his head, but doesn't quite get through the bone. While in another room, Amy's able to effectively utilize some holy water to prevent Jerry's advance. Ed tries to get a bite off on Charlie, but struggles with his head flopping around like that. Amy then smashes his face up real good, allowing Charlie to get some practice finding the heart. They then try to slip away amongst the club rats, but Jerry is close behind and they end up getting separated in the frenzy for free t-shirts. Jerry ushers her away and is able to entice her into sneaking a gnarly little bloody kiss, resulting in her then giving in fully to his wiles as Charlie is dragged off by a bouncer, who recognizes that his flannel indicates he doesn't belong here. He then circles back to Peter Vincent, intent on insisting that he help him get his girlfriend back. However, after losing his family to vampires as a young boy, he just can't bring himself to venture back into the lion's den. Instead, he gifts Charlie a stake that was blessed by Saint Michael and is supposed to turn victims of vampires back into regular folks. As a new dawn rises, Charlie hits the army surplus store early to score all the best equipment. He quickly bursts into Jerry's home and starts lighting the place up. After a brief Amy sighting, Charlie runs into Peter, who has had a change of heart, and he showed up just in time to reveal some of the tricks of his trade, uncovering a trapdoor that leads to a freshly dug up basement dungeon. They follow the sound of Amy's voice, presuming this to be a trap, and being correct in that presumption. Jerry walks down Peter and doinks him in the forehead with a pebble. This doesn't seem like much at the time, but the spilling of blood on these sacred grounds actually awakens an army of ghouls. Charlie's been closed in with Amy, who's feeling the full weight of her new thirsty compulsions. However, when she cocks back for a huge bite, she ends up thrusting herself upon the sacred stake. When Charlie gets back out to the main chamber, the ghouls are going to town on Peter. But Charlie's able to knock out a few floorboards, which provides them with a modicum of protection for now. Peter begins to lightly smoke as he turns, putting a definite limitation on their time here, which they appear to be destined to spend watching as Jerry goes in hard on Charlie's girlfriend. But Charlie uses this distraction as an opportunity to set himself on fire to teach Jerry a lesson. And he attaches himself to the vampire as a means of ensuring his extended misery and to prevent him from getting his wits about him. When they finally land in a sun ray, Jerry's chest starts to pull back a bit, giving Charlie a clear target for inserting his stake. After Jerry is reduced to dust and ash, his victims are then freed from their curse. As a special treat, after everyone's all healed up and healthy, Peter makes provisions for the use of his bearskin rug in the copulation of his underage friends. If you think you can handle more, be sure to check out this video next. Now that we're here, I want to congratulate you for making it to the end of the video and affirm that you are a very special person because of it. And if you enjoyed the video, I would love for you to become a part of the channel by subscribing. Thanks for watching.